This is Lisa from MobileTechReview, and this is the Gigabyte Aero 17 HDR. We've reviewed the Aero in the past, the 15-inch models, and, well, obviously this is the bigger version, and they're gearing it not just to gamers, but also for content creators, and part of that is the HDR display. So the one we have has a 4K IPS 100% Adobe RGB display. It's matte, IPS, non-touch, and boy, is it good looking. There's also a Samsung 4K OLED option, though. We haven't seen that one yet. And for those of you who, well, that blows out the budget too much and you're not content creating so much as gaming, there is still the more affordable model with the 1080p display. And not cheap, though. These are still pretty premium. Starts at $17.99 for the non-HDR version, and our pretty well-equipped model right here starts at $23.99. We're going to look at it now. So this is the 2020 refresh with Intel 10th generation CPUs, 45 watt, though not just 45 watt, but that class of Coffee Lake CPU. So there's a Core i7 6-core that we've seen before, and that's on the base non-HDR model. And on ours, you can get that CPU, or you can get what we have, which is an 8-core i7 CPU. That's kind of neat to see that. And then there's still a Core i9 option as well. And so that one, you can go up to 65 watts. That's what I'm saying. It kind of depends, because that's an HK overclockable CPU. Sweet. So that's a lot of performance. It's something that's still relatively thin and light, less than an inch thick, and this is 2.5 kilograms, which is 5.5 pounds. So it is lighter than a Razer Blade Pro 17, for example. Pricing for our model with an RTX 2070 Super Max-Q. The Supers are the new GPU refresh from NVIDIA. And that one gets more expensive. We're talking around $2,700 or so. For $23.99, you can get it with the RTX 2060. And there's no Super Edition there. And there is also an RTX 2080 Super Max-Q. So you can go up and push $3,000 and better on this if you want. So, for the premium price, what are you getting here? You're getting a lot of performance. Now, I've reviewed Aeros before, like I said, and they were pretty good, but the looks were staid, and I think people like them for that, especially people who are buying these for content creation or take them to work, and then when you bring them home, you have some fun with games, though home and work kind of are the same thing for some people now. But anyway, the looks have improved here, definitely. It still isn't, you're not going to get that Razer Blade level of unibody metal kind of thing here, but it's a good looking machine and it feels pretty good, just not quite Razer Blade. But the Razer Blade Pro is still a lot more money. We're talking easily $3,000 and more with the Blade. So there's that. And the performance on this, I am super impressed. And the fan profiles too. Now this is a shipping version, so this is not pre-release, and it's been very stable. And the noise level, just using it, has a bunch of different presets you can go with. If you put it on the normal mode, the fans are really pretty tame for a gaming slash mobile workstation kind of product here, more along mobile workstation lines and not making a lot of noise. Even when you're gaming, you don't have to use headphones. There is a gaming profile if you really want to blast the fans more, and that's okay. So it's core temperatures on this, which has always been a problem with gaming laptops, particularly the thin and light ones. I'm really impressed with what they've done here and the performance that goes along with it. Again, with our 8-core i7. The benchmarks on this, excellent. The actual gaming experience, really good frame rates in games at highest to ultra settings. Even 4K for Tomb Raider, we play that at high. And you can see the sample footage for both high at 4K and 1080p at the highest setting, and really very good. They are doing some throttling on the cores for thermal temps to keep it lower than average. We see a lot of gaming laptops, even Ultrabooks these days, sometimes going up to the allowable thermal maximum, which is 100 degrees centigrade. So here, it's pretty much trying to keep it around 90 to 92 centigrade. And I'm actually okay with that, because otherwise, us geeky types spend a lot of time managing our thermals and doing settings and profiles and all that sort of thing, because we want to ensure the longevity of our machine and not run it at max temperatures constantly. So they're kind of doing that for us while giving really good frame rates, really good performance in programs like Adobe Premiere. So I'm down with what they're doing here. Beyond that takeaway, the next important thing again is the display. We have that 4K IPS display with full Adobe RGB color gamut, and it's calibrated at the factory, Pantone calibrated, and they make a big deal about that, and then they should, because this is one of the best calibrated displays I've seen. That color accuracy graph, you never see bars that tiny, meaning that there's very little deviance from perfect on that. It has high contrast, relatively speaking, too, for an IPS display. It's just nice to look at, and it's fun for games, too. One thing that Clearly, this is more geared towards content creators rather than gaming, because most people play games probably in not very bright places. This one went to 518 nits of brightness. Most of the time, I didn't use this laptop above 40% brightness as a result. It's that bright. So games do look really good on this, no kidding. But for those of you who are doing a professional work for photography, say for print, where you need that wide gamut, or magazines, print magazines, all of that sort of stuff, you've got what you need here in the built-in display, which is nice. You don't have to hook up a monitor just to do color proofing anymore. The Intel 10th generation CPUs, not a huge jump, about a 10% improvement at most over the previous generation. But again, the interesting thing here is you can get an 8-core i7 on this machine, and you've got the Core i9 option. How the thermals are on the Core i9, I obviously can't say because we don't have that, but we are working with an 8-core i7, so I don't expect a huge difference unless you get into something like overclocking that Core i9. The rest of the specs are pretty similar to the last generation. We have 2 RAM slots. It's available in different configurations. Typically, the ones we're looking at have 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, 2666 megahertz or faster, depending if you go with that Core i9 option. There are 2 slots, so you can upgrade it to 32 or 64 gigs of RAM. There are 2 M.2 SSD slots. One's NVMe only, that's your boot SSD, and the other slot is M.2, and it also supports SATA if you want to save money on your second drive and not pay for an NVMe drive for a storage drive on. The pre-built configurations have just one SSD, so it's up to you to add that second one. We have killer Wi-Fi 6 on board, which is really an Intel chip. It's that 1650 card, so that's good, with Bluetooth 5 on board. And the port situation is quite good, especially for a relatively speaking thin and light laptop, though we do have a big chassis to work with here. So you have Thunderbolt 3, you have 3 USB-A ports, you have a full-size SD card slots, UHS-2, so it's a fast SD card slot. We've got Gigabit killer Ethernet on board as well. HDMI 2.0, DisplayPort 1.4, so pretty much anything you can ask for you've got in terms of connectivity here. When it comes to graphics, we have these good old chestnut, the RTX 2060 on the lower end models. In fact, they're even lower with the GTX 1660 if you really like the machine and you're using it more for content creation. You don't need super killer graphics. You're not doing 3D content, you're doing 2D content. But anyway, for the refresh, we have RTX 2070 and 2080 Super, both of them, Max Q edition. So Max Q, yes, Super, yes. This is kind of like up one, down one, you know what I mean? But in the end, it's a little bit faster than the previous generation. The other plus would be the fact that the card can, in theory, support NVIDIA Optimus and G-Sync at the same time. But it's up to the manufacturer to implement that. In this case, no, we just get NVIDIA Optimus switchable graphics. But that does help with battery life, and that's another selling point for this machine. It has a 94 watt-hour battery, which you don't see very often, something that high capacity. Dell XPS 15 would be one of the few, but this has a lot more horsepower. In gaming laptop land, not super common. Some Alienwares do it too. But anyway, what does it mean? It means pretty good battery life unplugged for those of you who need to use it for productivity on the go, Photoshop, whatever it is you're doing. Obviously, if you're doing heavy-duty 4K video editing on this, if you're going to try to play games unplugged, your battery life's going to be shorter, but we managed about 6 hours with the brightness set to 150 nits. Not too bad for a machine with this much power inside. For the keyboard, it's not too different from the last generation. It's their Fusion per RGB key backlighting, so you can do light shows of any kind. There's a little bit of PWM here, not like razor blades, so it can be a little hard on the eyes though, so I never set it to max brightness. You can use the command keys on the keyboard to turn the brightness on and off, low, high, and off, or you can use the software to control it more gradually, which I find is useful. The only thing I can say I dislike about it is the fact that just like razor blades of old, they finally got around this. The multimedia keys are not backlit. Your secondary keys are not backlit. So I find myself being a little blinded by the brightness of the backlight while trying to see where is the @ sign. I forgot, you know. The key travel on this is pretty short. It's not my favorite keyboard. It's not abysmal or terrible either. This is not some weirdo butterfly keyboard or something like that, but it's pretty short travel. Again, more for content creators doing 3D and 2D work and gaming, and not so much for you people who are typing all the time. The trackpad is a Microsoft Precision trackpad, and it works wonderfully. We have 2 2-watt speakers on board, and they don't have much bass. I'll say that. If you want that roar and thumb rumble and all that sort of thing, definitely speakers or headphones are the answer to that. So on the bottom we can see a whole lot of ventilation. That's a good thing. Just avoid putting it on top of anything linty so it doesn't suck it up. To take off the bottom cover, Torx T6 screws. They are all visible. They're not hidden. The rear ones are captive, which means they stay in place. It's pretty easy to get the bottom lid off, and there we have it. And there's our internals. Nice big fans here. 3 heat pipes is decent, but they do manage to have plenty of ventilation also out the sides and the rear. And 2 RAM slots right there. We have our NVMe boot SSDs. Ours is a fast Samsung. Apparently you're not using those Intel SSDs anymore. I'd say that's a good thing. That Samsung is fast. The second SSD slot, if you want to add one, is right here, supporting both NVMe and SATA SSDs. We have our socketed Wi-Fi card right here. The down-firing stereo speakers, as with most laptops, are down-firing and flanking the battery, which is right here, the big 94 watt-hour battery. So that's the Gigabyte Aero 17 HDR, and I have to say they have finally gotten it right. It's stable in a way that some of the previous Aeros that I've reviewed haven't been. It's thin, it's light, it's getting better looking. I have no objections to the way it looks. It's not beautiful, like I said, like a Razer Blade or a MacBook Pro, but hey, the horsepower in here and the cooling are super impressive. The 4K display on this, very nice. The keyboard, you know, that's one little pet peeve there. No secondary key lighting and a little kind of stroby for the backlighting settings, but that's a small price to pay. Oh, and it's expensive too, but at least you're getting good stuff for your price. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and then hit the notification bell too.